encourage you to watch the next segment of this web video series, in which Dave Reese sits down and interviews his partner Richard Piskey, and they talk about when Richard was president of the large national firm Olson, what his perception of the small to mid-sized staffing firms was at that time. They'll then fast forward a bit, as Dave and Richard have been working very closely with staffing firms, small to mid-sized staffing firms right now, and talk about some of their observations about those firms that they've worked with, and look at some of the advantages that the small to mid-sized firms have right now over the national firms in this type of economy.
We spent a lot of time with these companies over the last year, and I thought it'd be neat to get your perception of the small and mid-market firm. What was your perception before you started working with them through the cooperative?
You know, I think, as you guys know, I was with Olson for most of my career, and Olson was one of the industry pioneers. Kelly started in 46, Olson was founded in 50, and I believe Manpower started in 48. So those three companies really were the backbone of an industry that was spun out of World War II. You know, coming out of a big company, you have a certain perception of the local players. And, you know, candidly, you know, my perception at that time is these were generally people that had started up their business in a local market. They had come out of HR. They, you know, might have come out of some other kind of service line of business. When I got into the industry, there was a lot of franchise growth in the staffing industry. And generally our perceptions were, you know, the smaller firms were over to the side, and they really were not in our gun sights. They were highly regarded. They had a quality product. They did not have significant market share. They did not have significant volume. And being part of a public company, we had to go after, you know, those opportunities which were significant. And normally the smaller local firms had their business base, and it was the larger firms that had the bigger market share, which was what we targeted. So in all honesty, you know, we had a cordial relationship. I didn't know as much about my local competitors as I knew about the nationals. And we focused on what we needed to drive our business. And but generally speaking, the thought I would leave is that the locals were highly regarded within their sphere of influence relevant to its customer base.
Great. What were some of the things that surprised you once you got deeper engaged over the last year?
There was confirmation that these firms were well run, that there was great tenure. One of the problems with the big players is turnover within the staff and the management team. A lot of that has to do with pressure of a public company. The bigger players are much more quick to move when there's performance-related issues. So the smaller firms that I've encountered were very wholesome and I would say a family environment, a very nurturing, caring environment on the part of the owner and founder. And you know, that's kind of the good news. The bad news is you know, it was obvious that there were some players within some firms that, you know, possibly needed to be reevaluated and taken a deeper look at where they continue to contribute. I mean, we met with a firm and had an owner admit that they'd had a person for a long time, had not really thought retrospectively about, is this person continue to perform? One of the things that I think is a consistent theme, was talking to someone this morning, and it's true that this environment, this economic environment is going to change the way this game is played. And you know, you can look at that in a negative way or you can look at it from an opportunistic way. But I happen to think that it's going to create more opportunity for the small player than I think it is a big player.
Why would you actually think it would create greater opportunity for the smaller companies?
I think the dynamics are going to change. There's part of my answering this question challenge is there's another question about how's this recession different.
And which I was just going to get into. You've been through a number of recessions, and I was quite surprised that you actually were able to grow the business through those recessions. How would you characterize this one in contrast to the ones previously?
When you come back and say deeper, if you go back and you really analyze the depth of the last recessions, the depth of this one, they become more relative to the number of people that are unemployed. You know, you guys have been at this a while, and you know that there's really a 4% unemployable component in this country. And so in the world that I've lived in, you know, if you got into the 4.5% to 5% range, you were starting to be challenged to find good candidates. And you know, so the media paints what they want to paint, but you know, the reality is we've probably got somewhere around 5 to 6% real unemployment relevant to who wants to work. And I think one of the ways that I believe is critical from a leadership perspective, everything falls down. Everything goes down from the leader. I mean, if you don't believe that, that's something you better come to grips with, because that's reality.